Today I am going to discuss about a concept that is loop optimization, where it is and one of the technique in code optimization. And in yesterday class I explained about what the scope of operations are and what the types of scopes that we are having in code optimization, and then the principles of optimization, and knowing what the principles of optimization, and then in that I explained various transformations in principal sources of optimization. And here in today class I'm going to explain about loop optimization. Here in the name itself it is there, where we are performing this optimization means in the loops. In loops we are performing this type of an operation at loops. And once recall the principal sources of optimization, where we are having in various transformations, right? Like dead code elimination, code common sub expression, and strength reduction, code motion, and so on and so on. In in the transformations of principal sources of code optimization, there we performed the optimization, or there we apply the optimization techniques for the expressions in the source code, right? And here in loop optimization we are performing or applying these optimization techniques for the loops. Make a note of this, for the loops. And where we are going to apply these optimization techniques. Up to now we know where we need to apply, or we are applying such type of techniques at the loops, wherever we are having the conditional statements or control statements, like if condition, while condition, switch condition, whatever it may be. There we are using the optimization technique like an loop optimization. But whether we are applying it in inner the loops or outside the loops, here we're having a question. So for that, what the answer is, here the code optimization can be significantly done in loops of the program. And especially the inner loops is a place where the program spends large amount of time. What it means is, here we're applying these techniques at inner loops of the program. So there it takes large amount of time. When spending with the inner loops, it takes large amount of time. What it means, whenever we spend with the inner loops in the program, then it takes large amount of time. And here, if the number of instructions are less in inner loops, then the running time of the program will get decreased. Make a note of this. And to a large extent, and here the loop optimization is a technique in which the code optimizations can be performed on inner loops. And the loop optimization is carried out by the following techniques or the transformations, like code motion, induction variable elimination, strength reduction, loop invariant method, loop unrolling, loop fusion, and so on. So, uh, and so on. So many techniques are there here. We are calling them as a transformations under the loop optimization. And here, what the main important thing is, we need to decrease the number of instructions in the inner loops. That's the thing we need to do here by applying these loop optimizations. Even if we increase the number of instructions in the outer loop, what it means is, here we are having in the program, we are having inner loop and outer loop section. So when you decrease the number of instructions in the inner loop, then automatically they should be right at the outside of the loop, right? So what we're doing here, we're increasing the number of instructions in the outer loop by decreasing the number of instructions in the inner loop. That's the technique. While applying such technique like a loop optimization, that's the advantage that we're having for this optimization technique. And what the next one is, and the in detailed transformations about this loop optimization can be explained in further slides. And but now just I'm giving just what the loop optimization is. Just I'm discussing about what the loop optimization is and what the advantage of this loop optimization, and what type of transformation that takes place. That means what type of transformations that we are going to apply in the loop optimization. That's it. And here the second one is on peaceful optimization. The next technique is an peaceful optimization technique. Here, what what is peephole optimization? And first, initially, you need to know what the meaning of the word peephole. Peephole is nothing but a small window. That means a small window is more over the target core, and the transformations can be made, right? So that is nothing but an peephole. And here, if we apply the statement by statement code generation strategy, then the generated target code may contain many redundant instructions. So the quality of such code is very poor. So we need an efficient code. We didn't want the poor efficiency. That means we didn't want the poor code, right? We need an efficient code. So to optimize such a target code, certain transformations need to be applied here. On where we are going to apply means on the target code. So these whatever the transformations we are applying, these transformations ultimately will result in getting the significant improvement over the running time or space requirements of the target program. And what it means is this is the reason behind of using this technique like a peephole optimization, right? When the quality of the code is very poor, then automatically we get an inefficient target code, right? So we need an efficient target code. So either to get the inefficient target code, we are applying such transformations like an peephole optimization to get the target code in an efficient manner. So to optimize such type of codes, we need to apply some certain transformations. So what transformations we need to apply means in the peephole optimization, we are applying the transformations at the target code. So we are choosing this technique. We are choosing this technique that is a peephole optimization because wherever we are applying the transformations, we are applying at the target code only. Then when we apply at the target code, when we apply the transformation at the target code, then automatically we reach the goal, that is generating an efficient target code, that is an efficient object code, right? And here, what the transformations that we are having, and before that you need to know what the definition of the peephole optimization is. What is an peephole optimization? This peephole optimization is a simple and effective technique for I'm having two types of operations, right? It is local operation and then global operation. To improve the local improving target code, I need to apply this peephole optimization, right? And this technique is applied to improve the performance of the target code just by examining the short sequences of the target instructions. And here, those are all replaced by the instructions by shorter or faster sequences. And this can be called as the definition of the peephole optimization. And by knowing the definition of the peephole optimization, here we're having some characteristics of peephole optimization. And these characteristics are applied on the target code. What those characteristics are? The first one is an redundant instruction elimination, and the second one is an flow of control optimization, and the third one is an use of machine idioms. And the next one here, this flow of control optimization or removal of redundant jumps or use of machine idioms. And here we're having the another one is an algebraic simplification, that is similar to the use of algebraic identities. So finally, how many characteristics are there for the peephole optimization means we're having four characteristics of peephole optimization: redundant instruction elimination, flow of control optimization, algebraic simplification, use of machine idioms. These are the four most important characteristics of peephole optimization. And then the first one is about the redundant instruction elimination. Here, how we are eliminating such type of an technique means here especially the redundant loads and stores can be eliminated. Loads and stores can be eliminated. For example, see here we're having an example move r0 comma a, move a comma r0, and here we can eliminate the second instruction with because why we are eliminating the second instruction means since the A is already in R naught, but if we use the instruction like an move A comma R naught is a label statement, then we cannot remove it. So this is the way of eliminating the redundant instructions. And here we are having an unreachable instructions. We can also eliminate the unreachable instructions or unreachable codes. First, initially we need to identify the code which will never be executed, and After identifying, just eliminate that code and modify it, and then again show the application of the transformation, right? That means here where what we are doing here is we are eliminating the redundance of loads and stores, and also we are eliminating the unreachable instructions. So by doing this what we can get, finally we'll improve the code, right? Finally we'll improve the code. To improve the code, just we are doing all this, just by performing all these transformations. What the next transformation here is algebraic identities. These algebraic identities can also be called as an algebraic simplification, and here it is in very effective technique in peephole optimization. See here we're having some identities where those are the worth recognizing single instructions within constant operands. That means a identity rules means they should not be changed, right? So a into 1 is equal to a into 0 is equal to 0, a by 1 is equal to a into 2 is equal to a plus 2. And these are some of the worth recognizing single instructions with the constant operands. I need to eliminate the algebraic simplification. So that means algebraic identities just by how I am eliminating this is just by using the strength reductions. That means reduction in strength. Here I am having certain machine instructions. In those certain machine instructions, and some are cheaper than the others. So I need to improve the performance of the intermediate code. So we can replace these instructions by equivalent cheaper instructions. That means here what it means here we are using the operators, right? Either plus, star, minus, by division operator, and so on and so on. Or here we are using some squares, x square, z square, like that. So by taking an example like that, x square is cheaper than x into x. X square is by writing it directly x square, it is cheaper than x into x. So similarly, the addition and the subtraction is cheaper than multiplication and division. And if we get effectively, we can use an effective manner means, so we can effectively use the equivalent addition and subtraction for multiplication and division. So this is the way of eliminating the reductions in strength or reductions in algebraic identities. And this is one of the most important uh, transformation in peephole optimization. So that's why it was named it as an effective technique, because peephole optimization is an effective technique for algebraic simplifications. We can call it as a simplification, or it may be an identities. And what the transformation is, and it is flow of control optimization. What it means is here we are learning two types. One is folding jumps to jumps, and another one is jump to return. What the meaning of this is, using this peephole optimization, unnecessary jump on jumps can be eliminated. That's it. What we are doing by using this transformation means just we are eliminating the unnecessary jump on jumps. See the example, initially label number 1, label 1 is jump label 2, and directly it can be replaced by jump label 2, because as a result of label 1 may become dead. That means we can call it as an unreferenced jump, right? And it is jump to return. A jump to return can be replaced by a return. That means wherever you find out the jump and return, it can be directly replaced by the return. Once see the example, then you can easily understand that jump label 1, what the label 1 is and return. So instead of using that label 1 or jump, directly I am using it can be replaced by the return. So label now what the label 1 is, label 1 may become dead code here. And you all know what the dead and what the live codes are. Never used. Those can be called as in deads. We are using those variables, then that can be, or you are using that code, we are calling that as a live code. And usage of machine idioms. And here also totally it is about a machine dependent, right? It is a machine dependent. Here we are talking about the machine dependent. That means here we are talking about the machine instructions and so that means machine instructions and so on and so on. What it means is only in the people optimization we are applying the transformations at target code, and our target code is in which language? It is a machine level language. So here we are only talking about instructions or loads or registers or instruction sets and so on and so on. So at, at target code we are applying the pitfall optimization techniques. So while coming to the usage of machine idioms, here the target instructions have equivalent machine instructions. Target instructions have equivalent machine instructions for performing some operations. Hence, we can replace these target instructions by equivalent machine instructions in order to improve the efficiency. Just see the example, and we're having an auto increment and auto decrements, right? I think you all know what auto increment and auto decrement is. If some machines have auto increment or auto decrement addressing modes that are used to perform add or subtract operations, those are used to perform add or subtract operations. And here my example is it is an auto increment. It is an auto increment. It is because instead of using that auto increment, what I am using here is directly initially from the given code I is equal to I plus 1, what the addressing mode it is there, add I in 1, right? So what I am doing here, I am replacing it by the auto increment. Add, in the place of add I am replacing it by the auto increment. If you are having sub, in the place of sub you can replace it by the auto decrement, dec decrement I, like that, right? And this is about an machine idioms, where these machines are, by using these machine idioms we can use machine specific hardware instruction which may be less costly. And this is up to the peephole optimization. In the peephole optimization I explained four transformations, mainly four transformations. One is an redundant instruction elimination, the second is an flow of control optimization, and the third one is an algebraic simplification, or it can also be called it as an algebraic identities, and the fourth one is an use of machine idioms. And now I need to know what the local optimization is. What local optimization is. And up to now I discussed about, I make you understand about some types of techniques. In that, one is in principles of optimization. There we are applying the optimization techniques by using different transformations at the expressions in the program. In the source code at the expressions we are applying principal sources of optimization. And in loop optimization, at the inner loops in the source code, we are applying loop optimization. And while coming to the peephole optimization at the target code, we are applying the peephole optimization. And while coming to the local optimization, and this local optimization is nothing but a type of an operation. That means uh, while while talking about the scope of operation, there I explained you how many types of scopes are there. There we are having two types of scope of operations. One is local operation and the second one is in global operation, right? And here, after learning the techniques like in principal sources of optimization, loop optimization and peephole optimization, now we are going to learn about a local optimization. This local optimization is done at a restricted scope. I already explained what optimization and what the examples of local optimization is. Again, I'm recalling those. And here the local optimization is a kind of optimization and that can be done on some sequence of statements. And the local, this optimization can be done within the specific blocks, within the specific basic blocks. And here I'm calling it a basic block. First of all, I need to know what the basic block is. And here in local optimization, a DAG is constructed for the basic blocks and then the optimization can be done. Make a note of it. First, initially we are constructing the DAGs for the basic blocks. For the basic blocks, initially we are constructing the DAGs and then we are performing the transformations. That means and then the optimizations can be done. It may be an peephole optimization or loop optimization or principal sources of optimization, whatever it may be. And the optimization techniques can be done at last. Initially, we need to construct the DAG for the basic blocks. And here the basic blocks, in the basic blocks, the code is in the form of an three address statements. Whatever the code, it looks like an three address statement. That means x is equal to y of z. That is a three address statement, right? So the code is in the form of an three address statement. Here, while comparing the peephole optimization to the local optimization, this peephole optimization is effective method of optimization for doing the local optimizations, because peephole, where we are applying the peephole optimization techniques at the target code, right? So when I'm applying the optimization techniques of peephole at the target, automatically I reach my goal. That is, I reach my efficiency. I can generate the code in an efficient manner just by applying and transformations, just by applying the transformations of the peephole. So this peephole technique is an effective method for doing the local optimization. And here the concept is about an optimization of basic blocks. And to know how the optimization of the basic blocks takes place, first initially you need to know what is an basic block. What is an basic block? That is, the what is the definition of the basic block, and what the terminologies that are used in the basic block. And here, what is the basic block means? Sequence of statements. We can call them as in consecutive statements. And here, in which a flow of control enters at the beginning and leaves at the end. Make a note of this. The flow of control enters at the beginning and leaves at the end without halt or any possibility of branching. Then only we can say that it is a basic block. Then only we can say that it is a basic block. For example, T1 is equal to A plus B, T2 is equal to T1 plus C, like that. Those are all comes under the sequence of consecutive statements. And here, what the most important thing we need to know is what the sequence of consecutive statements in which the flow of control enters at the beginning and leaves at the end. Enter at the beginning and leaves at the end. And here, without any halt, that means we're not terminating there. We're not terminating there, or we're not doing any branches or any forming any cycles or any possibilities of the branching. We are not doing like that. So without halt or without possibility of the branching, the flow of control enters at the beginning and leaves at the end. Then only it can be called it as a basic block. And what the terminology is used in the basic block means, define and use is the terminology. Live and dead is the another terminology. And dead code, live and dead, I already explained in the last class at the transformation dead code elimination. When we call it as a dead variable and when we call it as a live variable. And when it is an live, when it is an dead, the name in the basic block, here we're talking about the basic blocks, right? So the context related to basic, we need to talk about the context related to basic block only, right? And here the name in the basic block is said to be live. When it is said to be live, at a given point, if its value is used after that point in the program, then only it becomes live, or else it is dead. Or else means, when we can say that it is dead, the value is never used after that point in the program, then it is an dead. And this is the terminology like an live and dead. And we are having the another terminology like an define and use. What the define and use is, here we are having a three address statement. For example, A is equal to B plus C. A is equal to B plus C. In this statement, we are having three variables, right? Three variables. And in these three variables, which variables we are using and which variable we are defining? We are using B and C, because with the B and C we are performing the computation, and whatever the output after performing the computation, that output is assigned to the A. That means the variable A is defined and the variables B and C are used. Is it clear now? And these are the terminologies, two most important terminologies: define and use, live and dead. And no, this basic block is having an algorithm. That means algorithm for partitioning into the blocks. We're having some step-by-step procedures. But here, before learning that, we need to know the optimization of the basic blocks. As we know that what the basic block is. What the basic block is, sequence of consecutive statements, and what the condition there, when here the flow of control enters at the beginning and leaves at the end, right? And what the optimizations or optimization techniques of the basic blocks that we're having means, here two types of optimizations that can be done on basic blocks. What are those means? First one is an structure preserving transformation. Structure preserving transformation. This can be implemented by construction of the DAGs of basic block. The second one is an use of algebraic identities. And let us discuss about the first one, first technique, that is structure preserving transformation. Here, in this structure preserving transformation, when it is applied means it can be applied by applying some principal techniques. What the principal techniques? Principal sources of optimization techniques, such as common sub-expression elimination, variable and constant propagation, code movement, dead code elimination, and so on. And the next step is, here first initially the structure preserving transformation is a DAG based transformation. That means here we are using the DAGs. It is a DAG based transformation. What it means is, DAG is constructed for the basic block, then the above said transformations can be applied. What the above said transformations means, the principal sources of optimization transformations can be applied. What I think you all understand. Initially, we need to construct the DAG, then only the optimization can be done, right? So, initially we need to construct the DAG, the DAG for the structure preserving transformation, and then the DAG is constructed for this basic block, and then only the transformation can be applied, right? And here, what the easy transformation that we can apply and we can detect means, in the principal optimization, in the principal techniques, the common sub expression can be easily detected by observing the DAG for corresponding basic blocks. So here we use frequently we use the common sub expression as an transformation at in principal techniques. In principal techniques, the common sub expression elimination is one of the transformation techniques. Here we are using the transformation technique, and by using that we can easily detect by observing the DAG. That means common sub expressions can be easily detected by this transformation, and whenever we construct the DAG, it can easily identify it by observing the DAG for the corresponding basic blocks. And here, first, what the first thing is, first we need to construct the DAG, right? And now we need to know what the DAG is. What the DAG is? DAG is a directed acyclic graph, and where it is used? It is used to apply the transformations on the basic block. And to apply the transformations on the basic block, a DAG is constructed from three address statements. Here, what the following type of labels or nodes. That means what the thing is, I need to construct an DAG, but initially I need to know what the rules to be followed for constructing the DAG. Without knowing anything how to represent the DAG, it results to failure. Right, it results to failure. So initially we need to know a DAG can be constructed for the following type of labels on the nodes. What those means? Leaf nodes are the labeled by identifiers or variable names or constants. Generally, leaves represent the R values, and interior nodes store the operator values. And here, the DAG and flow graph are two different pictorial representations. Those two are not same representations. Two are different pictorial representations. And here, each node of the flow graph can be represented by the DAG, because each node of the flow graph is a basic block here. Make a note of this. Each node of the flow graph is a basic block here. And whatever the edges we're having, those edges related to the operands to the operator. That means those comes under the interior nodes or the operator. And the interior node represents the computed values. That means the identifier in the labels are deemed to hold the values. These are the most important things, or we can call them as in rules or some constraints we need to follow whenever we're constructing the DAG. And see here we're having different representations of the tag. Different representations means we're having different examples. For example, if t1 is equal to 4 into I, t1 is equal to 4 into I, and how we can represent the DAG. This is the way of representing the DAG. t1 4 into I, and here we're having the another representation. t1 is equal to 4 into I, and this is for t1. t1 is equal to 4 into I. t3 is for the same temporary storage variable. t3 is also defining the same statement. So put comma and write down t3, and what the t2 is t1 plus t3. And now I need to write t2. Here what the operator is plus. So t1 plus t3 is equal to t2. This is in t2, right? And by the operator plus t1 plus t3. What it means is t2 is equal to t1 plus t3. What t1 4 into I. What t3 4 into I. And if you are having an if conditional statement like this, and how to write the DAG representations for this. If I less than or equal to 20, go to L1. Less than or equal to I less than or equal to. The operators are the nodes, right? Operators are the interior nodes. And what the external nodes are, variables or constants or identifiers, whatever it may be. Those are all comes under the external nodes, right? So this is a label one, L1. What the label one is, I less than or equal to 20. Is it clear? Here in this slide we are having three different address statements. For the three different statements, where we represent the DAG like this. The DAG representations are shown like this. For only the single statement t1 is equal to 4 into I, this is the way of representation. For we're having the three lines of address statements, and this is the way of writing or representing the DAG. DAG is nothing but a directed acyclic graph. That means here we're forming the cycles. We're forming the cycles. We call them as in loops also. So, and how to construct the DAG. Construction of the DAG needs and what the input and what the output is, right? And how what the input is in the form of an basic block with an B, and what the output is a DAG for the B. We're constructing the DAG for the basic blocks, right? That means a DAG for the B. And here what the B contains the following information. What the information is: a label for each node. For leaves the labels are IDs or constants, and for interior nodes the labels are operators, and for each node a list of attached IDs possible. That is possible empty list or no constants. These are the following information that contains in B. That means here what the output we're generating means the output in the form of an DAG. That means we're constructing the DAG by taking an input in the form of an basic blocks. And see here, this is an most important thing that we need to know. What it is what the data structures of the DAG and what the functions of the DAGs are. And here, coming to the data structures of the DAGs are label, left, right, list. These are the data structures. And what the functions are: node of ID, create of ID, comma L, comma R. These are the two functions, and those are the four data structures that consisting in the DAG. And what the label of the node. What the left is, pointer to the left child node. What the right is, and this is the pointer to the right child node. And what the list is, list of additional labels. It may be sometimes of empty for the leaves. And by using this node of ID, what we're doing here, we're creating the node of ID. That means what the statement that we're returning here, that returns the most recent node created for ID, or else return undefined. And here the next thing is an create ID, comma L, comma R. What it means is here it consisting of three parameters. And what the first one is an identifier, the second one is an left, and the third one is an right. What we're doing here is, here with this function we're creating a node with label ID with L as an left child and R as an right child. These L and R are the optional parameters, right? And when you are having a question like this, explain about the data structures of, means you need to explain the four data structures like label, left, right, and list. For the node, these are the four data structures. and explain about the functions of the DAG means we are having only two functions. These functions are used for creating the nodes, one for creating the nodes and one for creating the defined. It returns the recent nodes that which created for the ID. ID is an identifier here. And now this is the method for construction of the DAG. We need to follow this method. What this method is here, we need to assume that three address statements are, we're having the three cases. See, three cases here, we also call it as in three types. X is equal to y of z, x is equal to of y, x is equal to y. X is equal to y. With the help of these following types, the DAG can be constructed. And if y is undefined, then we need to create, y is undefined, then we need to create node of y. If similarly z is undefined, we need to create node of z. Right? Is it clear? Again, I'm repeating, with the following types or following statements, or we can also call them as in following cases: x is equal to y of z, or x is equal to of y, and x is equal to y. First, what the thing we need to do is, if y is undefined, then create node of y with the function node of y. See, here we're having a function node of id, right? So for the id y, now I am creating, because initially it is an undefined variable, so I am creating for node of y. Similarly, if z is undefined, so create node of z. And for the case one, like x is equal to y of z, first you need to create a node operator whose left child is node y and the node z will be the right child. And also here you need to check that for any common subexpressions, for any common subexpressions. And in the case 2, we're having x is equal to of y, right? So there we need to determine whether is a node labeled operator. What it means is such node will have a child node of y. And in the case 3, we're having only x is equal to y. That means node n will be created. Node n will be the node of y, right? And here in the last step, if you want to delete x from the list, that means delete x from list of identifiers just by using node of x. And if you want to append in the sense, if you want to add x to the list of attached identifiers for node n, and then you need to find out in an second case, that is case number 2, x is equal to of y. And these are the steps that we need to follow, that we are calling it as a method to follow for the construction of DAGs for the basic blocks. And see, here we're having an example for the construction of the basic blocks. This is the step number 1 I am performing here in local optimization. What the step number 1 is, initially from the basic block, just I'm taking the input as a basic block, and after taking as an input in the form of bb is nothing but a basic block. The second step is you need to construct the DAGs, construction of the DAGs. Then what the third step is, then we need to apply the transformations. Optimizations can be done at last, right? Before before you need to construct the DAG, then only you need to optimize them. Then here I'm having the three address statements. See here, for each and every translation statement I'm representing a DAG like this: t1 is equal to 4 into I, t1 is equal to 4 into I, t2 is equal to a of t1. See how I represent the DAG here: a of a of t1, right? T2 is equal to a of t1. What the t1 is? 4 into I, right? And what t3 is, again t3 is 4 into I. So again I'm not representing for the t3 directly, I'm writing here comma t3. And next t4 is equal to b of t3. What t4 is? B of what the t3 is? 4 into I, right? So see the representation here, this is t4. Then t5 is equal to this t2 plus t4, this t2 plus t4. And what the t2 is? T2 is a of t1, means 4 into I. T4 b of t3, 4 into I. And finally it is stored in an t5 with plus plus. That means t5 is equal to t2 plus t4. Then finally I is equal to t5. That means the resultant is with a temporary variable t5. Then that resultant is assigned with a variable I. This is the way of representing or constructing the DAG from basic blocks. And here we are having some of the applications of the DAG. What the applications is, the DAG is used in determining the common sub-expressions, that means expressions computed more than once, and determining which names are used inside the block and computed outside the block. And with this DAG also we can determine which statements of the block could have their computed values outside the block. And with this DAG we can simplify the list of quadruples by eliminating the common sub-expressions and not performing the assignments of the form like x is equal to y, unless and until it is a must. Make a note, unless and until it is a must. And this is about the construction of the DAG. And this we can call it as an DAG based local optimization. This we can call it as an DAG based local optimization. What it means is, from the example, if you are having a question like that, construct the DAG for the following block. Then first the optimized code can be generated just by traversing the DAG. Then the local optimization of the given blocks can be done. Given blocks means here I'm having an example. See here, this is an example, right? And the local optimization of these blocks can be done. And in that, what the first thing is, first a common sub expressions are eliminated first, and then a dead code eliminations are eliminated next, and then finally we can show the optimized code. And again we need to draw the DAG for the optimized code, right? Initially we should construct the DAG for the given code, given basic blocks, and after performing the optimizations also, at last we need to represent the DAGs. And that representation can be called it as an optimized code of the DAG representation, right? Is it clear? And after construction of this DAG on the basic blocks, what the observations that we made here is a leaf node for initial value of an ID. Leaves should be an IDs or variables or constants, whatever it may be. A node n for each statement s, where s is an statement, s is an line statement. So we need to construct a node n for each statement. And then the children of node n are the last definition. That is, first initially we need to prior to the s of the operands of the n. So those becomes an children of the node n, right? S is an statement, and the children becomes the node n, right? And whatever the operands of the n are there, those becomes an child nodes, right? These are the observations that we made when we construct the DAG for the given basic blocks. The basic block is the code for the basic block is in the form of an three address statements. And in the next class, I will explain about how the optimization can be done for this DAG representation. Right. Initially, the step number 1 is completed in local optimization, and the step number 2 I will discuss in the next class. And I think you all understand the today's session. So my today's session starts with the loop optimization, and then peephole optimization, and then local optimization. In that local optimization, I'm explaining the first transformation, and in that first transformation I am following in step-by-step manner to construct the DAG. That means to perform the transformation, first initially what I need to construct. First you need to construct an DAG. So up to now I construct the DAG and I know what the applications of the DAGs are, and by constructing the DAGs for the basic blocks I get some observations here. So I defined all those observations and I discussed with you what and what those observations are. So it is very simple representation. It is very simple representation. DAG construction is a very simple construction from the basic blocks.